trust that you would take under consideration for somebody that's totally disabled. Thanks.
Okay, any questions for Ms. Dollar? Okay, thank you, ma'am.
Good morning.
Good morning.
My name is Alice Strong. My address is P.O. Box 324, Lumber City, Georgia, 31549. And I have been cited for, says Ms. Dolores Wright said I took her ballot and said she did not require any help. But she did require help. And I have a letter from her son stating that she required help because she had had a stroke. And also, she was housebound. She's an avid voter, but she couldn't get to the poll because she has a motor wheelchair, and it was torn up at the time. And I was asked to go and help her vote. But the only thing I did, she did her own marking on her ballot. But I signed the oath that I assisted her and filled out the back of the oath with her information. And I have this letter from her son.
We have a motion to accept the letter.
So moved. Second.
I've got a motion to second. All in favor, signify by saying aye. Aye. All opposed, same sign. That motion carries. And you just hand that to Mr. Carter.
Thank you, ma'am.
Just let us see that letter. All right, Ms. Strong, do you have anything else you'd like to add?
With no sir, because that was the only one. I did not receive a letter from the election board, but I saw someone else's letter, and I saw my name on there, so I decided to come and to let you know what
So
happened.
you're saying that you did not receive notice of this hearing?
No, sir, I did not.
Any questions for Ms. Strong? Okay, thank you.
And, but also if I may, it's in 2012, this election was, the investigator, Ms. Pam Jones, came by my house one day, and, but I wasn't at home. My girlfriend told her I was at work, but she never contacted me, and she also sent me a letter and asked me to call her, and I called her several times, but I never got her, and I left messages on her phone. She never contacted me.
Okay.
Thank you.
All right, anyone else?
My name is Chris Stevenson. My address, 16 Mimosa Lane, McCray, Georgia, 31055. And I serve as the sheriff of Telfair County. Mr. Secretary, I have a folder that has the letters that you just got a copy of, along with some other sworn affidavits. What you have is a sworn affidavit. With your permission, I'll approach and give the board.
We have a motion to accept the documents from the sheriff.
So moved.
Got a motion to second. All in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. All opposed, same sign. That motion.
I appreciate the opportunity to come before this honorable board. I don't represent any particular person here. restraints. I had written a letter to the board, but, with such little notice, we didn't get it off. So with your permission, I'd like to go over my letter and just point out some facts in case you have some exhibits attached to your folders. I hope you'll follow along and stop me at any point that I can answer a question. I will say also that the Secretary of State's office, the Investigations Division, has some of the most competent investigators in the state of Georgia. I know this because I was one of them at one time. And I know these investigators, and I work with these investigators, and they're very competent. Unfortunately, the investigator that got this case left a lot of questions unanswered. And in my opinion, this investigation was sloppily done, and I'll point out some of those instances in my letter. It is my understanding that several citizens of Telfair County have matters pending before this body. I would like to take this opportunity to address the board concerning my firsthand knowledge of the fine ethics and good character of many of the individuals named in this report, as well as the obvious investigative deficiencies evidenced throughout this case. Firstly, the complaint originated from an individual well known in my office. As a matter of fact, your complainant, John Dobson, is currently being investigated by the G.B.R. for recklessly and repeatedly pointing a pistol to the head of a local senior citizen while threatening the gentleman's life, only because he agreed with Dobson's outlandish and slanderous rants. Closest family circle. Sworn affidavits reveal a sloppy or non-existent investigation aimed only at smearing my family. See attachment number 1, pages 4, 5, 6, and 7, which are sworn affidavits that counter the allegations made against these individuals. I've been a criminal investigator for well over 20 years. I've investigated every crime from shoplifting as a local agency police detective, election fraud as a member of Secretary of State's investigative division, to war crimes as a criminal investigator working overseas for the United Nations. In every case I've ever investigated, all witnesses and all of those accused were interviewed whenever possible. An investigator should never submit to a prosecutor, or in this case, to this board, an investigative report that reflects solely the uncorroborated allegations of the initial complainant. This is not the former Soviet Union, and this is not Saudi Arabia. The agent assigned to this case had 3 years to interview all the parties related to this case. I was told the agent claimed she couldn't find them. I was told the agent insinuated that many of the individuals mentioned in her report avoided her attempt to interview them. This is simply not the case. These people are honest and forthright in all of their affairs. They are definitely not the felons this investigator has accused them of being. After casually investigating this case for 3 long years, the respondents were notified they were being accused of committing various felonies by Chief Investigator Chris Harvey, and their case will be brought before the board in 30 days. I, as Sheriff of Telfair County, was contacted by several of these little old ladies and gentlemen named in the report. Many of these individuals are some of the dearest and sweetest elders of our community, hard-working, honest, tax-paying citizens who came up through the Great Depression and fought in our wars. Some are still involved in serving their communities in some way. They are proud Georgians who up until this time believed in our system. They believed in our election process. One 92-year-old widower, a World War II veteran, often boasted proudly to his family and friends that he has voted in every election since he was 18 years old. This same gentleman told me that he will never vote again because of this ridiculous accusation against his 65-year-old daughter, a retired school teacher, widow, and loving grandmother who has never had even the slightest encounter with law enforcement. Another, Mr. Henry Carnes, a 75-year-old respondent who is also a pillar of our community, stated in his sworn affidavit, "I doubt I will ever vote again based on how this investigation has been handled. It's just not worth the hassle." You can see his statement on attachment 1, page 2. As a trained career investigator, and at the request of some of the respondents, I read through the investigative findings regarding this case. I quickly realized that there was absolutely no evidence of criminal intent or fraudulent acts, but what appeared to be only minor errors in filling out the absentee ballot envelopes. I also felt compassion for these senior citizens because most are not physically or financially able to defend themselves before this board. I personally hired a private investigations firm to locate and interview the witnesses in this case and to obtain sworn affidavits from them. I merely provided the investigative firm the names of the respondents and witnesses and a copy of the complaint. Promptly, in the course of 2 afternoons, these witnesses and respondents were interviewed and sworn affidavits were obtained. The private investigation revealed that the first time many of the respondents were notified of these accusations was when they received notice from Chief Chris Harvey less than 30 days before the hearings. It also revealed that at least some of the respondents repeatedly reached out to the investigating agent after her card was left on their door and left messages but never being contacted back. At least one lady, Mrs. Carnes, a 71-year-old lady, see attachment 1, page 3, reported that she recently contacted Chris Harvey directly. The respondents and witnesses in this case obviously did not elude investigators, but instead attempted to reach out to them. There are several factors responsible for any errors that may have been detected by the state's investigator in this case. However, even the slightest insinuation of criminal intent and or fraud is grossly unjustified and not supported by the facts. At best, many of the scenarios described in the investigator's report can be attributed to common errors and innocent mistakes. Mistakes such as poll worker did not check the box that an elector's driver's license was inspected 33 times countywide. Out of 35 ballots cast, that's not bad. Elector did not fill in the blank for the street address, 18 counts countywide. Elector signed their name in the wrong line, 1 count. Poll worker did not check the box that elector was physically disabled, 10 counts. These and similar violations go on and on to equal some 162 counts. I think this board would agree that the fine print regarding the oaths on the absentee ballot is very tiny at 1/16 of an inch. You can see an attached sign. The oath of person assisting elector states that only if the person assisted in marking such elector's absentee ballot are they required to sign the oath. Obviously, the investigator assigned to this case also had trouble reading the fine print, as many of those accused of committing a felony by not signing the oath had not assisted in marking the elector's ballot. They may have assisted in filling out the oath of the elector and or assisted in addressing the envelope properly. But in most cases, signing the oath of a person assisting elector is not required. However, if an investigator were to ask an elderly elector or if anyone helped them fill out their ballot, of course they'll say yes, because in their mind they did have help with their ballot. The help was in filling out the oath and address correctly, and maybe applying postage for it. When the private investigator specified to witnesses using exhibits to demonstrate what is considered assistance with their ballots, they quickly clarified their answers, and not one of the witnesses interviewed thus far has corroborated any of the accusations of wrongdoing. We also had a new and at that time inexperienced registrar who had a lot to learn rather quickly. She was in constant communication with the Secretary of State's office staff as she navigated her first election, nervously trying to do everything just right. I'm sure she probably made a few mistakes, but after this horrible experience, she will probably seek further employment. There is not one single element of this case that rises to the level of election fraud. There's not one single element that can support any claim of an elector not freely voting for the candidate of their choice. There's not one single element to support any claim of an eligible voter not being allowed to cast their vote. There's not one single element to support political corruption in our county. I would bet that if the state investigators scrutinized any county election in this state as closely and as for long as they have scrutinized ours, they would find a similar number of these mistakes and probably more. People are not perfect, and temporary employees who may work one election day every few years are bound to err. But as long as they err on the side of not denying a single eligible voter to cast their ballot, we have accomplished our goal as a free democracy. I feel it's very unfortunate that innocent, law-abiding Georgians can be dragged before this board and accused of committing felonies when a fair and competent investigation has not been completed. These matters will forever be a part of the public record, and these good and proud members of our community will forever be shamed and ridiculed for being undeservingly accused of criminal behavior by having their names attached to this report. I am presented by Investigator Harvey and his report. Sworn affidavit can stand up any court of law anywhere. To give you an analogy of what has happened here is we had a gentleman, we're known for our big deer and world record bass in my part of the state. This gentleman lured an investigation down here with tails of the big game we have. Well, once they came looking for that big game, they didn't find any because the guy was a fraudster. So before going back with an empty sack, they stopped off and bought a few packs of bologna. And that's what you have here is bologna. You can't make big game stew off bologna. I appreciate you all giving me the time to address you. It's upsetting to me. We've had so many negative issues surrounding our county historically. We've got new people in office. We're trying to change things because our economic plight is so bad. We don't have much industry, and we'll take the rap for what we do, and we'll punish those that have violated the law. But in this case, I'm telling you, there's nothing here. This was a fish expedition. When the complaints didn't pan out initially, for whatever reason, they decided to dig until they could find something. All you've got here is a few mistakes. And if you've ever been involved with filling out one of these absentee ballots, I'm sure you've made a mistake too. But I hope the board will consider the evidence that I presented. This case has not been adequately investigated. Witnesses have not been adequately interviewed. This case was strong together. It was sloppily done. And innocent Georgians have been dragged through the mud by being attached to this report as a result of that. And I think that should never happen to any Georgian or anyone in this nation as far as that goes. I appreciate your time, and any questions you may have of me, I'm glad to try to answer.
Any questions for the sheriff? No questions. Thank you, Sheriff. Anyone else wishing to speak? Yes, ma'am.
Good morning, my name is Linda Floyd. My address, 180 Spalding Drive, Mayville, Georgia. I also received a letter. I didn't understand it, but they said that I assist Mr. Albert McCray, and it was May Mack. During that year, for as I can remember, if I assist anyone with their ballot, I would sign my name. I can't remember back in 2012. I just wanted to come and say, if I assist someone, I did sign my name. Thank you.
Okay, any questions for Ms. Floyd? All right, thank you for being here. Anyone else? All right, Mr. Harvey.
Hurts me. My county commissioners, Mr. S.O. Jones, Mr. Joe Wingate, and Mr. Howard Lawson find nothing wrong with this. They find nothing wrong with this. How much can one community endure to have the right to have our votes cast and counted for who we want to represent us?
Anybody else wants to bring up anything else?
Anyone else? All right, Mr. Harvey.
Yes, sir. Mr. Secretary, could I respond to the sheriff's comments?
Yeah, I'm gonna let you do that. I got a question for you.
Yes, sir.
We had one, I'm trying to find in my notes here, we had one person that said that they weren't noticed.
Yes, sir.
Do we have record of sending the notice?
We do. We've got, and we scan all the notices that we send out before we do. I don't have all those copies with me, but we can certainly correct or we can certainly verify that a letter was sent. You know, whether it's a good address or somebody has changed or it gets lost in the mail, but we can verify every respondent is sent a notice.
Yeah, I just want to make sure that it's clear that we did notice.
Yes, sir.
The individuals so they could be here this morning to give us their side of the story. So,
Yes, sir.
Yes.
If I may respond to Sheriff Steverson, I think I understand Sheriff Stevenson's passion. However, I think his argument proves our point and discredits his own point. His basis seems to be that these are all good people and that the complainant is a nut, I guess, to paraphrase what he said. And we shouldn't have considered the allegations of a nut, and we should have known better, and we should have somehow made some sort of subjective analysis that, well, this person is making a complaint, and we should have known that he was crazy and not done anything about it. Instead, what we did is we took the complaints from this person, and we don't know anybody in Telfair County, whether they're, you know, unhinged or they have an agenda. Mr. Steverson made a complaint also that we investigated. We investigated the initial allegation about absentee ballots. How you investigate absentee ballot fraud is if there are specific people that are alleged to have had their ballot taken, you go talk to as many of those people as you can. If those names don't come up, you've got two choices. You can either say, sorry, nothing we can do here, or you take the extra additional and very time-consuming step of getting copies of all the absentee ballot applications, copies of the absentee ballot envelopes, going through them individually, identifying voters who have some type of discrepancy, randomly interviewing voters. Now, he indicated that we sort of randomly selected the people to interview. We did not. We randomly selected absentee voters, and we interviewed them, in many cases on tape, with an standard interview form, with experienced law enforcement investigators, and I would certainly dispute the allegation that Investigator Jones is anything but a top-notch investigator. She is one of our best investigators, and I would stand behind her 100%. But we interviewed these individuals. From these individual interviews of the voters is where we got the names of people that had supposedly assisted them. And contrary to Sheriff Stevenson's understanding, filling out an absentee ballot envelope oath of elector is assisting under the law. So if somebody fills out an absentee ballot envelope, they are assisting the voter. He indicated that was not a violation of the code. I put to the board that it is, and that the board has always upheld that it is. The fact that the names of the people assisting came back to the investigators, and we went and made contact with as many of those people as we can, and again, over 45 interviews, letters sent to people. Yes, there were some people that we were not able to contact, and people that didn't respond, and opportunities that might have been missed to indicate. But anybody, by any objective standard, looking at what we did, can say that we did exactly the opposite of what Sheriff Steverson suggested, that we went out to tar and feather somebody or to brand somebody's name. We followed the evidence regardless of who was involved. As a matter of fact, it was, I think, 2 days ago that when Sheriff Steverson contacted our office, I didn't even realize that one of the respondents was Sheriff Stevenson's mother. There's no specific indication that that's the case. And I called the investigator and said, hey, in going over this case and getting ready, I see there's some connection, there's some mention. Is that person a respondent? And the investigator said, yes, it's this person. So there was no attempt to brand anybody. There was no attempt to go after anybody. We simply followed the voters who related their experiences with absentee ballots and led us back to the individuals that assisted them. So the fact that we followed the facts, and again, to say that we have somehow branded these people as felons, before this meeting today, the board will hear 25 to 30, 40 cases of individuals who are accused of doing the exact same thing that these individuals are doing. No specific recommendation has been made, nor will be made, that any of these people are handled any differently than any other people in the same circumstance. And I think the board would recognize that that's the case. If somebody illegally possesses an absentee ballot, the board has had a very long-standing practice of generally binding those people to the AG's office. The board can certainly vary from that if they want, and I don't need to tell the board what they can do. But I understand his passion, and I understand that it's unfortunate that people that presumably have good intentions, and I have no reason to believe that any of these individuals who spoke had the intention of doing anything wrong, but the fact is, in some cases, they didn't sign as assisting. When they may think they did. We've got copies where they did not sign as assisting. I'm completely confident in submitting this to the board, and the board taking action on it, and if the board decides to send it to the AG's office will have sufficient evidence to take appropriate action for these violations. And again, just lastly to say, this shows there is no consideration of who the respondents are. We follow allegations and we follow violations, and when we find a violation, we make a citation. We've cited state senators, we've cited state representatives, we've cited candidates, we've cited family members.
Any questions for Mr. Harvey?
Mr. Harvey, look at the oath of the person assisting elector
Yes, sir.
carefully. It says that I've assisted the elector in marking such elector's absentee ballot as such elector personally communicated such elector's preference to me. It doesn't say anything about filling out envelopes or putting addresses on envelopes. This is talking about assisting the elector in choosing the candidate, just like the sheriff is said. Now, if the oath should say something else, then it needs to be amended on the form. But this just says that you're helping mark the ballot. And we've heard, and I don't know that your investigator went that far in her investigation to determine whether the assistance was marking a ballot or just filling out an envelope or putting a return address on it or something like that. And I think it makes all the difference in the world.
Well, sir, respectfully, under 21-2-2 definitions, ballot, and I'm reading from the code, ballot means official ballot or paper ballot and shall include the instrument, whether paper, mechanical, or electronic, by which the elector casts his or her vote.
Right, but you're not reading what the oath says. The oath says, it doesn't say anything about saying that you have to, this oath doesn't say that I help fill
The oath
out
says-
some other part of the ballot.
Yes, sir.
It says making the choice of the candidate the elector chooses. Now,
Yes.
if you didn't do that, why would you sign this affidavit? Because it doesn't say I helped in any way with the ballot.
Well, it says ballot, and under the definition of ballot, the envelope counts as a ballot.
Listen, you gotta look at what the oath says, not
Yes, sir.
what the statute says.
I understand, sir. And if the board, wants to, direct us to follow that, this is the standard that we've used for years, and we can certainly reconsider. I can talk with Mr. Willard if that's something we need to reconsider. I think if you look at the memorandum of interviews that we did, they do indicate in pretty great detail what the person did. The person, and you don't have that, but I'm talking in these files, when we do interviews, we do a question and answer form, and then it's summarized by the investigator. In some cases, it's audio recorded, and the investigators do go into specific detail about what was done. And in many cases, it was just that. It was that the assister marked the ballot envelope. And if the board doesn't believe that that's a violation, we can certainly adopt that. But it's been the standard practice that is considered assisting of an absentee ballot.
Regardless of what the standard practice is, looks like to me we need to go with the language of the oath rather than some standard practice. Particularly when some of these affidavits says, my daughter-in-law only filled out the mailing envelope in order to mail my absentee ballot. Doesn't say the daughter-in-law helped her select her candidate.
That's right. And in some cases,
The oath says that I helped select the candidate.
and in in some cases, I understand individuals have told us that they gave the ballot to one of these individuals, and now I'm hearing that the person has recanted and now is changing their story, which is something that would have to be determined at trial or determined witness credibility. I've not seen those affidavits, so I don't know what they say, but I had a call when Sheriff Stevenson said that Ms. Carnes called me. She called me, I think, Tuesday this week. She was interviewed in 2013, so she was interviewed. She may not have remembered being interviewed, but we've got a documented interview with her at the time. Like I said, we've got 3 accordion folders full of interviews and evidence and documents that have gone through to come up with these. And again, that's been one of our applications of assisting with absentee ballots, and if that's incorrect or improper, we'll make changes immediately. But and I would argue, I guess, or I would submit that Mr. Willard could determine whether or not, if the board wanted to send it over, whether or not that's something that he could proceed on. But the allegation that this was some kind of sloppy, haphazard witch hunt investigation is completely belied by the facts.
I'm not saying that.
I understand, sir.
All I'm saying is look at oath, look at what oath says to determine whether or not there's a violation of the law.
I understand.
That's all I'm saying.
Yes, sir.
All right, any other questions for Mr. Harvey? Ms. Jones, I'd like to ask you a couple of questions, if you don't mind. Just give us your name, address for the record.
Pam Jones, investigator for Secretary of State's Office, 237 Coliseum Drive, Macon, Georgia, 31210.
I had a few questions I wanted to ask you. How long have you been an investigator for the Secretary of State's office?
6 years.
6 years. Do you believe that when you were doing this investigation, you were one-sided in it?
No.
Do you believe that you randomly selected the individuals that you talked to or interviewed in this process?
I know. Yes.
And why would you do that?
To get an adequate sampling of the alleged violation. So that not to take too many people from one district. I went through the stack of applications or ballots, and like every 5th person pulled the application to review. And until I could get the number that I needed.
So when I say randomly selected, it wasn't like you just went down there and picked the people that you thought you should talk to.
No.
You had a process on how you would do the investigation.
Yes,
They
we
would give-
decided that 20% would be an adequate review. And discussing with our supervisor and Mr. Harvey, we decided 20% would be sufficient number.
Do you feel like anybody has been dragged through the mud on this investigation, or have you handled this like you've handled the other investigations that you've done in the 6 years that you've been working for?
It's been handled exactly the same way. There's been numerous investigations regarding the same allegations, and we always handle them the same way.
Could you tell us about how you went through the contacting process of the individuals that claimed that they were never contacted, that they were never talked to, that they called you back, left messages, and then you didn't call them back?
Primarily, the initial contact is done in person if you can. This, the distance issue with us was a problem because we're almost 2 hours away. And time constraints but I would initially try to make contact in person. If that wasn't possible, then I would research and try to get phone numbers. I contacted by phone and left messages. Some cases you can't leave a message, some cases the phone's been disconnected. And then last resort is to send a letter. And typically it's done by certified letter. We do have issues sometimes in getting our green cards back. Lost mail, we have a huge mail run here, so that's the case sometimes. So.
Okay. Anybody else have any questions for Ms. Jones?
When you interviewed these people, did you ask them exactly how they assisted
And the MOIs, not to interrupt, but the MOIs do generally indicate if the person assisted, they helped me choose the candidate. In some cases, I believe Ms. Studdard was blind, and she said that, I think it was Ms. Dahl or whoever assisted her, she told her who to assist. And so it indicates in the MOI that Ms. Dollar marked the ballot for me and then showed me what assigned my name. So if you look at each individual interview, it generally indicates to what extent they assisted.
Thank you. All right, anyone else wishing to speak that hasn't spoken? All right, Sheriff, you have something you want to add?
Not just to add that, in the report that you all have, it says basically that the complainant's allegations could not be corroborated. At that point, I don't understand why they went on such a fishing expedition when they brought us all here today with a bunch of errors on the voting process. And also, if one does not understand the law or the rules for the absentee ballots themselves, I don't understand how they could be expected to investigate it and bring these good people before this board. As I'll stand by that this investigation was done sloppily. This investigator has no criminal investigations experience of the size her experience since being hired with this board. And there's a lot more that could have been done. And you all must agree with me that the verbiage on the absentee ballot as far as the oath is very confusing. And you'll have hearings from now until the end of time to cover everybody that makes mistakes on those. These people try to do the right thing. They're not criminals. They don't have criminal records. They don't have criminal histories. And it's unfortunate that they're here today.
Thank you, Sheriff. I would just say that, these technical errors on voting and forms and procedures, we have laws, rules, and training for a reason. And we've had cases before where we've had people that didn't do those things properly, which calls into question those ballots and those votes. And I know the sheriff and I would both agree as elected officials that if the election doesn't go the right way, we can have elections contested over such matters. So I would disagree with, allowing small details to slide in the elections process, because it can create some big problems down the road. Just hold on one second, ma'am.
Mr. Chairman, I may not should interject this because I don't know anything about the absentee ballot situation. My client's not involved in that. But I just feel like I need to get this out there when Ms. Jones stands up here and says that she contacted everyone or attempted to. The former election superintendent, who was the election superintendent at the time, was not contacted, and she's been living at the same address in Helena and has the same phone number for 30 years. Just want to get that out.
Yes, ma'am.
I'm viewing now.
Ms. Dollar, you got to come on back up here to the microphone for me.
I'm viewing now, and I want to find out if it's proper for the investigator to harass and intimidate relatives that are deceased about an absentee ballot.
Well, ma'am, I think if you have a complaint about somebody harassing or anything
No, I
else.
investigate, what I need to write to the
Yes, ma'am.
Secretary of State.
Yes.
Okay, thanks.
All right, anyone else? Okay. Ms. Harvey, do you have anything else you want to add?
No, sir. I think
Let me ask you this, on the more serious potential allegations, do you feel like it would be beneficial for us to table those parts of the case where you could pull out and look at, the investigative documents and give the board some more detail in the future on those?
Well, I don't know that that would necessarily be helpful. My thought is with the allegations that have been cited are pretty clear, and if it's determined that those are not good citations, then I think the easiest way to go forward would be for Mr. Willard to evaluate each of them and then close cases or just misrespond as necessary. Sheriff Stevenson said that there there is no real fraud going on down there, and you know, frankly, we didn't find evidence of real fraud down there, and I don't dispute that with him as far as our evidence goes. But you know, as you said, you know, little things matter in elections, and details are important, and I don't know that there's going to be any more detail that we could gather. I think maybe a better use would be for to us, maybe in consultation with Mr. Willard, if you bind it over, is